the Vice President of the United States, J.D. Vance.
This, but you know, one of the things you see in the Epstein emails is that Jeffrey Epstein hated Donald Trump, and that Donald Trump literally reported Jeffrey Epstein to the police.
Okay,
that's one of the things that came out of these files.
They were best friends for about a decade. And remember, he signed that Transparency Act under duress when some Republican women, congresswomen like Lauren Boebert, like Marjorie Taylor Greene, did not give in to his pressure of not signing. He brought Lauren Boebert into the Situation Room to pressure her into caving on not voting for that bill.
So let me respond to that. So
that's all true.
Let me respond to that. So number one is, yes, Donald Trump, and he said this, he knew Jeffrey Epstein back in the 1980s. He also threw Jeffrey Epstein out of his club when he found out he was a creep and reported him to the police. That's something that the media often misses when it reports this story. They tell the fact that they knew each other in the 80s, which the president himself admits. They ignore the fact that he narked on him to the police and led ultimately to JeffreyEpstein's downfall. To that point, Anna, you know the Republican Party. Well, it's one of the things that led to law enforcement investigation. But on the point that you made,
it was allegedly over a real estate deal that they got into a fight over.
But the email says actually
they didn't just know each other. Let's just be truthful and transparent here. They didn't just know each other.
He's in a lot of
they were incredibly close friends.
He reported him to the police. That's what I'm saying. That is objective. That is objectively true. But Anna made another point that I think Whoopi, if I may, because Anna made a very important point. This question about, did Donald Trump release these files only under duress from Republicans? And Anna, you know the Republican Party probably better than I do. The idea that Donald Trump runs around afraid of Republican congressmen as opposed to the other way around is kind of crazy.
What was the bipartisan?
What's up, family? J.D. Vance walked into The View, one of the most hostile rooms on television, and he stayed calm the whole entire time, not just a little calm, ice cold. And the more they pushed, the more composed he got, and the worse they looked. Hit the like button, share this video, subscribe to the channel, turn on your post notifications, because we're going to break this down piece by piece. Epstein, immigration, race. They threw everything at this man, and we're going to walk through every single moment. And I find it funny, coincidentally, because as you guys see on the screen, Anna Navarro and J.D. Vance talking to her, that she was the most combative, or she gets the most combative award in this whole episode with The View and J.D. Vance and their interaction. You guys can let me know if you agree with me or not, but I do believe the trophy goes to her as being the most combative. And he told, if you guys peeped or not, he said, Anna, I'm pretty sure you know about the Republican Party more than most of us because she's married to a Republican who is from Cuba. That's her spouse, and you guys can look it up for yourself. But right out the gate, as you guys seen in this clip, before JD even gets comfortable in the seat, the panel jumps straight to Epstein. And I want you to think about what that tells you. This administration has released more information about Jeffrey Epstein than any administration in modern history. More than Obama, more than Biden ever would have, and Democrats in the mainstream liberal media weren't asking about Epstein when their people were in office. Now, and all of a sudden, it's the first question out the box. That's not journalism, that's a trap. And the Epstein trap only works if you don't know the full story, because they always tell you one part. Trump knew Epstein. They were in the same social circles back in the 1980s, and the president himself admits that, and that part they'll repeat all day long. What they won't tell you is what came after, which is that Trump threw Jeffrey Epstein out of Mar-a-Lago when he found out Epstein was preying on young women connected to his club. And according to what came out in those emails, Trump reported Epstein to law enforcement. That's not speculation. That's in the record. The same emails the panel was using to question J.D. Vance here in this first clip of the segment are the very same emails that show Trump narked on the man. Now, is it an accident they skipped that part? No, that is a choice. Every single time they give you the relationship and they hide the fallout, and that's how you build the narrative. You just leave out the pieces that don't fit, and Vance didn't flinch. He didn't flinch. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't get defensive. He just walked through it. He knew Epstein in the 80s. He also threw him out of the club and reported him to the police. That's something the media often misses. And that's his words, I quote. He said it just like that in this clip you just heard. So calm, direct, and Pacific. while the panel was over talking each other and interrupting, trying to fill the space with noise, and Vance was already 3 steps ahead of the argument. And here's what that moment teaches you, family. When you come in with the facts, you don't need to come in loud. The panel's reaction told you everything you needed to know about how that exchange went. They got louder, he got quieter, and that's not a coincidence. When someone has to raise their voice to win an argument, they already lost it. And Vance knew that. And if you were watching closely, the panel knew it too.
Vice President, can I just add one more thing? Because you do speak about immigration at length in this book.
Sure.
And I believe, as a Christian, I can tell my kids why it's important to have borders. I get that. There are laws, there are resources. I get all that things. It's much harder to explain when I see someone dragged out of a house or wrongly taken to a thing that isn't a violent criminal. It's a little more nuanced as a parent to try to say when someone's referred to as vermin or scum, when I teach them in school about people that have done that before, but this is different. It's very hard as a parent and a Christian to say both things.
And you actually say in the book, you talk about this, you talk about this struggle, this internal struggle in the book, and you talk about moral trade-offs that result in favoring a strict migration policy without dehumanizing anyone. But listen, over 50 people have died in ICE custody. There are thousands of children, 6,200, that are being held in places like Dilley Detention Center. The people that have visited those detention centers, I don't know if you have, talk about the subhuman, infrahuman conditions, the lack of clean water, the lack of medical attention, the lack of education. I would urge you as a Christian and as a father to visit those detention centers where the children are being held and make sure that the conditions are up to the values that we hold in this country.
So you guys have thrown a lot at me, and I see we got 30 seconds left here. But let me say,
You're
number
the Vice
one,
President, you can go long.
I'd like to pick up on this theme because I think it's really important. We do have to strike a balance, of course, between enforcing our laws. We don't want to dehumanize people. That is the balance that, look, law enforcement, what I'd say about this, law enforcement is always inherently not a very pretty process, especially when you're dealing sometimes with violent people, with people who are resisting arrest. Some of the people that I've been told by the media were completely peaceful, had never violated any laws. You actually look into the record and you find out that those people were actually being violent, or they did have a criminal record. They had a sex trafficking conviction.
Don't have criminal records. So the majority of people that ICE is rounding up and taking out of their homes from their families, they're separating families. They're using children as bait.
But
the majority are not criminals.
But can I respond to that, guys? Let me just say this. Okay. So you talk about the children. Here's what I'd say. Do we know that during the last administration, we had tens of thousands of children who were sex trafficked by the cartels, who were brought into our country in profoundly dangerous and predatory conditions?
Let's talk about this administration.
But here's the point. Unless you enforce the border, you invite that kind of conduct. You think that our immigration policies are inhumane based on the reporting of one person with a political bias. What I'm telling you is that it's inhumane to allow cartels to sex traffic people across our border.
And by the way,
Please hold on.
I appreciate that. We're going to get you back, Anna.
We're coming back with more with the Vice President, and I've got questions for you.
Great, thank you.
So, after Epstein, they pivot to immigration, as you heard. And this is where The View tries something different. They don't come at him with emails or documents this time. They come at him with his Bible, or the Bible. One of the hosts looked right at Vance and essentially says, as a Christian, how do you justify what this administration is doing to families at the border? And I want you to recognize what the move actually is, because that is not a moral argument. That is a pressure tactic. You take someone's faith, the thing they hold most sacred, and you use it as a weapon to make them feel like they have to choose between their beliefs and their policy position. And it's designed to put you on defense. It's designed to make you stumble. And if you're not grounded, it works. Vance didn't stumble. He acknowledged the tension. He said, look, law enforcement is never a pretty process. We don't want to dehumanize anyone. That balance is real, and he doesn't pretend otherwise. But then he flipped the entire frame. He said during the previous administration, tens of thousands of children were sex trafficked by cartels who brought them across the border under dangerous and predatory conditions. And he said it plain. Unless you enforce the border, you invite exactly that kind of conduct. So think about what he just did. They came at him with the moral argument. You are a Christian. How you can support this? How can you support this? And he responded with the other moral argument they never put on the table, which is, how is it moral to leave a door open for cartels to exploit children? Both of these are moral questions. Both of them involve real children, but the View only wanted to talk about one side of that equation. And Vance forced the other side into the room, whether they wanted it there or not. And here's what this looks like in real life. Not to mention that President Obama put these individuals that crossed the border, because he was the one that enforced the border the most before President Trump got in office with the Trump administration. Obama actually put these kids in cages, but they don't want to talk about that part. So you got families in cities across this country who have watched their neighborhoods get flooded with gang activity, trafficking networks, drug pipelines, all of it connected to what's coming across an unsecure border, because this is what this really looks like in real life. And that's not a political talking point for those families, right? Their kids go to school, it's the block they live on, and someone's sitting on a television stage in New York City telling them that enforcing immigration law is the immoral position isn't making a moral argument. It's making a comfortable one, and there's a difference. And Vance stood on a full picture, and the panel couldn't handle it because they only brought half the conversation. Now, this is where it gets really interesting, because after immigration, they go straight to race, which is what Whoopi Goldberg is about to go to. And I want you to pay close attention to how this one plays out, because there's a lesson in here that goes way beyond this interview. So I want you guys to check it out.
So let me do my follow-up.
You don't have to raise your hand,
Let me do my follow-up.
Yes, I do.
Because you were talking about people. What did black people do to this administration that has allowed it to really stigmatize folks of color? And you know how hard it is. You have folks of color in your family.
Sure.
So when you see, things, the Emmett Till stuff coming down, or them doing all kinds of removal of information of black heroes, how does that sit with you?
Well, what exactly are you talking about, Whoopi? Because you just
I know
Emmett Till was the kid.
All the stuff. Yeah.
No, I want to know what she's.
You don't know what I'm talking
to your
about.
actual point.
So in a lot of the museums, there's so many. Where they're taking down the actual history that happened in this country. Slavery happened. All kinds of stuff happened. And it seems that it has been very easy for this administration to remove that, and also to denigrate black folks who have worked their behinds off to get this American dream. How do you, you know better.
So Sonny, that was actually a very helpful intervention, because I think the story you're talking about is where, allegedly the administration is holding back the appointments of people based on skin color. I've seen the story.
I'm talking about a host of things. I'm talking about black history getting erased from public spaces. Black voter districts are being dismantled. Black leaders are being sidelined from our ranks. Where do Americans of color fit in this vision? Because it doesn't seem like we fit.
I think, Sonny, my view.
And if I may, since October of last year, there's been something like 6,668 refugees allowed into the country. All but 3 were white South Africans.
So, first of all, I'm very skeptical of that number, because we have a lot of different immigration pathways in the United States of America. But let me just address Whoopi's point. Look, first of all, you asked the question, and maybe you don't believe this coming from me, but I think everybody is welcome in our political coalition. Frankly, even if you didn't vote for us, everybody is welcome in our country, so long as you're an American citizen with the duties and the legal obligations and rights to be here. But Whoopi, let me just give you an example of this. Okay, so you say that we're anti-minority or anti-black.
No, I didn't say that.
Yes, she did. She's trying to be politically correct, but she actually did say that. She's saying the administration is anti-minority. They don't care about black people, and black people is basically being erased from the history of America. And she's trying to make it politically correct because she's on television, which is ABC, the network. But if she's going to say it, since she's so big and bad, I don't know why she just won't say it. But now she's trying to say, no, I didn't say it, but she actually did say that. See, Sonny Hostin actually said, oh, well, they're trying to destroy black communities and, you know, predominantly black communities or black cities. The reality is this: when this gerrymandering stuff started, it actually started in Virginia with the governor in Virginia. Um, she actually started trying to gerrymander in a way to make sure that it swings where the Democrats continue to win and stay in power. And what happened was the maps didn't get approved by Virginia Supreme Court. And on top of it, she's already changed the voting where it goes by popular vote. So even if you vote Republican or you vote Democrat when it comes to the presidential election, if majority, for example, let's say majority of Democrats happen to be voting in Virginia and the popular vote is Democrats, those who voted Republicans, their votes automatically turn Democrat, and all those votes basically go to the president because the majority of the vote and the popular vote and what got the most votes was the Democrat Party, which would translate to the entire state being that one vote going to the president within that Democratic Party, based on my example. Vice versa. If majority of Virginia votes Republican and it shows all the votes more so be Republican, then those who voted Democrat, those votes were changed to Republican because most of the state of Virginia voted Republican, which then all those Republican votes go to that Republican candidate when it comes to the presidential election. The reality is this: Sonny Hostin is spreading ignorance in the way that they're not dismantling predominantly black communities or cities, quote unquote. What they are doing is making it an even playing field because the simple fact is they gerrymandered, which means they shaped the maps and mapped them out for so long, for years, the Democrats, when it came to making sure it scales in their political advantage to automatically win without no real competition for the other party. If you ever realize that Republicans have less money than Democrats, Democrats have a Democratic machine that have a lot of sponsors and individuals that can prop them up with money to push their campaign out more. And Republicans are more conservative, so they have less money, but they operate off of authenticity. And I'm not cutting this out either. Um, Authenticity, and they don't have that much money because the simple fact is, I'm not saying because both aisles of the political spectrum can be Democrat or Republican, they can be sellouts. But it tends to be more scaling if you look at the pattern, because I'm looking at behavioral pattern, being objective here, that Republicans tend to be less of sellouts when it comes to just saying the things they want to say, to be propped up, to have campaign money and things like that, to be fundraised, which is why they get outdone by the Democrat, which would say whatever they need to say to basically get propped up with money campaign wise to continue to push their narrative. Because if you have an individual that keeps pushing a campaign narrative in your face and the other individual doesn't have that much money, but they have to strategically put things in place to get their campaign message out there. If you have the Democrat individual with all this money and they continue to advertise everywhere all the time, every single day, 24/7, and they keep putting it in your face, then you're more prone to vote Democrat. It's no difference if someone tell you a lie long enough, you'll believe it, right? So I'm saying all that to say that the maps have become even where the Democrats can take two counties within the city and combine it with one and make it like the election is fair, but it's already going to pan out where the individual who is Democrat is automatically going to win because they have more counties and the counties are bigger based on them grouping the maps together, and they basically bloated and populated one county, so they automatically tip the scale, and the scale automatically tilts to being Democratic. But it's not an even playing field because the voters aren't really deciding the candidate, because automatically the candidate already won before the votes actually came in. So it's not dismantling black cities or black communities. It's actually making it fair and actually putting the power back into the black voters, quote unquote. Since you want to speak about, black people in Pacific, I don't really care about being a black, white, orange, purple. I just wish that the race stuff go away because it's just divisive and it separates us and it tears us apart. And I promote unity all the way. But I'm just speaking to what Sonny Hostin said because I believe that it's a lot of ignorance, and also individuals are going to see this clip and see this episode on The View that came out this week, and it spreads a lot of ignorance. So I'm just here to inform you of the truth on what I learned, and also advocate for you to not let me tell you what to think or how to think, but also go do your research, because what I'm saying, and I'm always open to being wrong, is why they don't like, because JD Vance already put it out there plain and clear. You're listening to one narrative based on political bias, meaning they're listening to whatever the Democrats are saying, and Sonny Hostin and Whoopi Goldberg, they're just repeating it. But the simple fact is, I just broke down to you that basically all Republicans want is the map to be even and not it to be tilt to either political scale, where the candidate automatically win based on a political party and not put the power back into the voters. So you're leaving it an even playing field. And to also support my second point of why is justification why this gerrymandering isn't going as good as they want to in the way that they wanted to go based on what they plan to do, which is the Democrats, because they had a grasp on the black community when it came to the Democratic vote so long because they automatically had a politician that was automatically going to win because they grouped the counties and win again. They grouped the counties so they automatically win against the Republican candidate, but they just played along like they had to fight the good fight to win that predominantly black community. But if you really look at it, they don't actually show what's worth their salt because they're just going based off of blackness, but not based off of policy, which then adds more fuel to the race rhetoric, which I want us to get away from as a country. And we just focus on what's best as a whole, no matter what the race is, with our communities being diverse as possible. That's my whole point. So they don't like that because now they're so used to using race instead of policy. But if it's an even playing field, now the individual, which is the Democrat candidate, which people have come to realize and has been more so likely for the Democrat candidate to win because they gerrymander so much, packing these counties together to make the Democrat automatically win in these black communities that they didn't actually go out and campaign and actually show the voters what they can do to fix the communities. And then also to my last point, to justify my point is these black communities are still in shambles. So that tell you how much they actually cared about what they said when they said it and they got elected. So tying all that together to inform you with that, because it's easy to be tricked when you don't really know what's going on politically, and there's a whole bunch of political word salad and jargon, and which is why I'm trying to break it down in plain English, simple words in real life from a real life world perspective, because I learned that way, and everybody learns different, but hopefully I made it easy for you, and if you got value from this video, give this video a big thumbs up. But Sonny Hostin looks at Vance and essentially says, your wife is Indian. That's why Whoopi Goldberg basically said, well, you have black people and people, she didn't say black people, she said people of color. So you and in your family, so you know how this goes to JD Vance. Basically saying his wife is Indian, so she's in a way black. So you should know how this goes and you should know better. So with that being said, you know what this administration's racial policies feel like for people of color. That's what they're implying because JD Vance's, the vice president wife, is a woman of color. And Vance should be feeling some kind of personal conflict about what the Trump administration is doing, which obviously he's a part of because he's vice president. And I need you to sit with that for a second because she's telling a man what his wife is supposed to feel based on her race. I just want to put that out there. And that is the exact thing these people claim to be against. You can't spend years arguing that people shouldn't be reduced to their racial identity and then turn around and tell a man his wife must feel a certain way because she's Indian. That is not fighting racism. And this is what I mean by driving the political rhetoric. That's why I agree with Morgan Freeman's statement. If you want to kill racism, don't entertain it. Don't speak to it. That's the best way to kill racism is not to speak to it. So in another way, you can look at it objectively and let me know what you guys think about that. Maybe the administration is trying to get away from the race rhetoric so we can actually move better as a country, even though acknowledging the flaws of what our country did, but we shouldn't stay stagnant on that because how are we going to continue to improve as a country? But it has been so ingrained to be a victim and run into the victim Olympics that this race rhetoric keep coming up. So going to Morgan Freeman's point, if you want to get rid of racism, stop talking about it. Maybe that's the point that the Trump administration is trying to show. Because they've weaponized these museums instead of embracing the history, but still letting it be a positive motivational drive to move forward as a country. They keep banking on it to set us back as a country and continue to basically divide us and go against each other. And they make money off the chaos. Because think about it, for example, if you keep driving the race rhetoric and then you make it a black versus white thing, then you make people go against each other. And then the city go to the government and say, hey, we need more money because our city is up in shambles and there's black on black crime or white on white crime or black versus white crime, and they use it to justify to get more monies in their state based off of racism, which they have driven, but they actually created a problem, but they won't tell you that, but they act like they're a solution to the problem, where really they just want to enrich themselves with money, and then shows you how deceitful the politician can be. Not all politicians, some. There's bad apples everywhere. You can say the same thing with law enforcement. You can say the same thing with teachers, professors. It is what it is. You can't change everybody, but the reality is to make, things, the standard be the standard. It makes things better as much as possible and continue to go in the right direction as a country. So also, looking at this Morgan Freeman quote, he once shared a quote that made many people stop and think. And I quoted, he said, maybe if we underpaid politicians and overpaid teachers, there would be smarter people and less stupid laws. For many, the quote reflects something deeper. Teachers help shape the future long before leaders. But now things have got so drastic within the race rhetoric, now that we have teachers being brought out to actually spew into the kids in a certain way, where a lot of Americans and most people feel like it's an indoctrination instead of actually teaching them what they need to know, which is why you see the reading scores going down and the math scores going down. So now it's becoming where the kids are being used as political pawns to keep individuals in power because they feel as though we can capture the youth while they're young. We can actually manipulate them and grain into their mind what we want to instead of leaving that to the parents, which is why you see government trying to remove place of the parent, and the government think they can parent you better than your own child. That becomes a challenge to his quote now because the race rhetoric has been pushed so much and continuously being infuriated and added more fuel to it, because at the end of the day, it goes back to his first point. They won't stop talking about it. So racism won't be getting rid of. So if it's creating another problem, but they're acting like they're a solution to the problem as a politician, do they really want to get rid of the problems to help you as a public official, to help the communities, or not? So who is it really for? And then you look at it and you ask more questions. Who do they prioritize more? The people that they're supposed to be serving as a public official, or themselves? Not to make this a whole tangent, but going back to this, I'm just opening up your minds. We just having a conversation. We just using critical thinking here. Who, what, why, and where. That's all I practice. So at the end of the day, going back to this, what if JD Vance and his wife being Indian, and this is the same group of women, Democrat individuals, mostly on The View, that is practicing it better with vocabulary, but not actually fighting racism that they claim they want to be against and fight. And then Whoopi joins in, as you heard, and brings up Emmett Till and starts talking about Black history being erased and things being removed from museums. And Vance does something very smart. The vice president, he stops her and asks her directly, what specifically are you talking about? Name it. Give me the example. She can do it. In the moment right there is something you need to file away, because it matters every time you have one of these conversations. She said there are so many examples, but she couldn't name one. Not one specific, concrete example of what the administration actually did. Just a feeling, just a general sense that something bad is happening. And when Vance pressed her, she kept circling without landing. So Vance pivots and goes straight to Washington, D.C., one of the most majority Black cities in the country, and points to a documented real drop in violent crime, sexual assaults, and murders since the administration started taking public safety seriously. I seen the other day a woman who it was a fountain within the Washington D.C. Community that the water was never on. I can show you that, for example.
Moving, but I've lived near Meridian Hill Park in DC for almost 2 years now, and the water's never been in the pond there.
This has never happened before.
I was always too afraid to come here because of the homeless people, but they're all gone, and it seriously looks like Paris. I mean, I've never seen this many people out here. I mean, look, everyone is enjoying it. Everybody.
So there you go. You guys got the point, right? So Washington, D.C., one of the most majority Black cities in the country, is being beautified again, right? Start taking public safety seriously, not a feeling, not a general narrative, and the actual outcome in the actual city where actually Black families live. And the panel's response was basically, why are you talking about crime? This is about human rights. No, if you think about it like this, crime is a human rights issue. And when, I don't know, your cousin can't walk to the corner store without looking over his shoulder, that's a human rights issue. And when kids in Southeast DC are ducking bullets on the way to school, that's a human rights issue. What they were really upset about had nothing to do with Black people losing rights. Black Democrats are losing institutional power. Black districts are being restructured. DI programs, which, let's be honest, were mostly about shifting political leverage. A lot of people are saying, are being rolled back, and that's a Democrat infrastructural problem, right? That is not the same thing as black people being under attack, and your family needs to be able to tell the difference because people will try to hand you those two things like they're the same, but they're not.
That I asked, see?
Well, okay, fine. Fair.
Don't start any stuff
All
with
right,
me,
okay,
man.
all
Don't
right.
get me in trouble. Don't start no stuff with me. But
I misinterpreted your question,
That's
but
all right.
let me answer your actual question there. What I'm saying, I think, okay, look at Washington, D.C. One of the most democratic and one of the blackest, by a share of population, blackest cities in the United States of America, has seen a radical decrease in violent crimes and sexual assaults and in murders. We have tried to take the crime issue seriously, in part because we believe everybody, whether you're black or white or rich or poor, deserves to live in a safe neighborhood.
That's true. I agree with that. And the simple fact is now, not to go off topic a little bit, but now the Washington D.C., as we know it to be very Democrat leaning as a city, has a mayoral race coming up, and they're actually leaning more toward Democratic Socialist mayor instead of a moderate Democrat mayor. And the mayor that is currently the mayor in Washington, individuals are upset with her for working with the Trump administration, but even though things are getting better, but I did hear that our President Trump said he will basically take it over federally if that's the case, because if the Democratic Socialists win as a mayor, you all know how that turns out. You guys see New York, for example, with Jerome Mudami. Yes, I understand celebration is wonderful with the New York Knicks winning the NBA finals and the basketball and all that, but you have buses on fire and people acting crazy and things like that. And it turns into a human rights issue because nobody is safe if you got individuals being able to do what they want like a knucklehead.
why does the crime?
And we
where
would-
does the crime step in? This is not about crime.
300,000
This is
black women
about
lost their jobs.
This is about human
Sonny,
rights.
what you're saying is
Black
we got to do
history's
more on the economy.
And black history has been
Sonny,
erased from public
Black
spaces.
history is not
That
erased
is
from
true.
public
Guys,
spaces.
we do
That
have to
is
get to
not
Iran
right.
when we get back.
Yeah,
There's some very
guys,
important news to
I'm
get
telling
to.
you, we celebrate Black history. We celebrate all American history. In this administration,
can I
you
ask you
guys
about a
might be
specific
skeptical of this, but I promise you it's true.
I have to go to break. Anna, God, please, we have more with Vice President J.D. Vance when we come back. Don't do that.
And there you have it. So let's zoom out for a second. I know it was a lot. You watched the whole interview from start to finish. Well, majority of it together we did. And you start to notice something. Every single topic they threw at Vance followed the exact same playbook. Lead with emotion, skip the specifics, appeal to identity, he gets rattled up enough to slip up. Epstein was emotional, immigration was emotional, race was emotional. 3 different subjects in one strategy. And it failed every single time for the same reason, which is that Vance came in prepared, which he is very intellectually well when it comes to articulating himself. He does a phenomenal job. I mean, not as a lot of people would like for Trump to be, but Trump is just who Trump is. The Trumpisms, he's just going to tell it how it is. Everybody's different. But still, you get the points, even through the humor of Trump and things like that. But Vance came prepared, not just prepared like he read a briefing sheet on the way over there, but prepared like someone who actually did the homework and wasn't going to let the atmosphere of the room replace the facts. The emails on Epstein, the cartel trafficking numbers on immigration, the crime data on DC. These aren't talking points somebody handed them backstage. Those are specifics. And when you have specifics, someone else's emotion doesn't have anywhere to land. Think about it from an everyday perspective. You ever been in a conversation where somebody's coming at you hard, voice raised, really trying to back you into a corner, and you just already know the answer, you already have the receipt. So instead of matching their energy, you just wait, you let them finish, and then you respond with exactly what they can't argue against. The room shifts, they get louder, you stay steady, and everybody watching can feel who actually had the stronger position. And that's what happened on this stage here with The View and JD Vance. Now, here's the part that matters most for us, because this goes beyond JD Vance in The View, that I quote, the threat to democracy framing that gets thrown around constantly only works on people who had never looked past the headline. And the moment you start asking what actually changed in people's lives, the argument starts to fall apart. DC is safer, the border numbers are shifting, the files on Epstein got released. Those are outcomes, not feelings, not framings, actual outcomes, and outcomes are harder to spin than narratives. So Proverbs chapter 15, verse 1 says, a gentle answer turns away wrath. And I know not everybody watching this is coming from a faith background, and that's fine if you're not. But even if you pull that completely out of a spiritual context, the practical truth of it holds. Vance didn't walk into that room swinging. He walked in steady. And that steadiness did something the panel wasn't ready for. It forced them to keep escalating. And every time they escalated, and he didn't, they look more unreasonable. Not because he attacked them, but because he refused to join them. So here's what I want you to take out of this for your own life. Next time somebody comes at you with emotion instead of evidence at the dinner table, work, online, wherever, don't match the energy. Ask for the specific example, make them name it, because as we saw with Whoopi Goldberg, when a specific example doesn't exist, that silence tells the whole story, basically. Composure isn't backing down. Composure is the most powerful position in the room when everyone else is reacting. So you walk in there, study, you let the facts do the work, and watch what happens. Composure in the face of chaos isn't just good television. It's something you, your family, your loved ones, anyone can use every single day. Drop a comment below. Tell me who you think won that argument or was more reasonable. I won't say won, but who's more reasonable, who is very objective, and who actually came with solutions and truth instead of just emotion. Um, I want to read every response. Hit the like button, share this video with somebody who needs to see it, subscribe to the channel, turn on your post notifications so you never miss a breakdown. Spread that peace, love, and positivity. Let the love supersede the hate, family. I'll catch you in the next one. Peace.